you took the test 3 times. Once it said INTJ, once it said INFJ, and once it left you staring at the screen, more confused than when you started. Here's the strange part. Almost nobody mixes up any of the other 14 types. But these two, people swap them constantly, including the people living inside them. Most people think this confusion means the test is broken. It isn't. The confusion is the clue. These two types share the same rare wiring, which is exactly why telling them apart takes more than a quiz. By the end of this video, you'll know the one function that actually separates them, the 4 everyday tells that give it away, and how to finally answer the question the test keeps getting wrong. Which one are you, really? Start with why this happens at all. INTJ and INFJ are 2 of the rarest personality types on Earth, each somewhere around 1 to 2% of people. They're both introverted, both intuitive. Both planners who live 3 steps into the future, and here's the part that trips everyone up. In the language of Carl Jung, who built the foundation this whole system stands on, both types lead with the exact same mental process. It's called introverted intuition. Jung described it as a kind of inner seeing, the mind that quietly connects dots other people don't even notice and arrives at conclusions it can't fully explain. That shared inner engine is why an INTJ and an INFJ can feel like the same person from the inside. Same depth, same distance from the crowd. Same feeling of always being a little bit ahead and a little bit alone. This is also why the popular tests fail so often. A 4-letter quiz asks you what you do you like plans, do you care about others? But almost everyone does a little of both. It never asks the question that actually matters. Which process is running the show and which one is just along for the ride? We're going to walk through 7 differences that cut through the fog, starting with the thing they have in common and ending with the test you can run on yourself. Let's start with the reason you're confused in the first place. You're not confused because you failed. You're confused because these 2 types share a root. Both INTJ and INFJ run on that same dominant process, introverted intuition. Think of it as the lead actor in the mind. It's the part that sees patterns, senses where things are heading, and feels certain about the future before there's any proof. When 2 types share their number 1 function, they share a whole way of experiencing the world. The daydreaming, the long silences, the sense that you're watching life from 1 step back. So if you've read both descriptions and thought that's me to both, you're not indecisive. You're accurately noticing the 70% that overlaps. The answer was never going to be in what they share. It's in what comes next. Here's the line that actually splits them. It's the second function, the co-pilot, sitting right next to that shared intuition. For the INTJ, the co-pilot is extroverted thinking. Jung's framework calls it the drive to organize the outer world into systems, logic, and results. It asks one question about everything. Does this work? For the INFJ, the co-pilot is extroverted feeling. It reads the emotional temperature of a room, tracks how everyone is doing, and asks a completely different question. Is everyone okay? Same visionary engine, 2 completely different steering wheels. The INTJ takes that flood of intuition and builds it into a plan. The INFJ takes the same flood and turns it toward people. That single difference logic co-pilot versus people co-pilot is the true fault line. Everything else you're about to hear grows out of it. Picture the 2 of them watching the same argument between friends. The INTJ is quietly mapping it, who's right, where the logic broke, what should happen next. The INFJ is quietly feeling it, who's hurting, who's about to shut down, how to hold the room together, same silence on the outside, 2 completely different worlds inside. Now, it gets more subtle because both types think hard before deciding. The difference is what they put on the scale. When an INTJ makes a choice, they run it through an internal spreadsheet. Costs, outcomes, efficiency, what makes sense. Emotions are data, but they're not the deciding vote. When an INFJ makes the same choice, they feel the whole web of people it will touch. Who gets hurt, who feels left out, whether it fits their values. Psychologists who study decision-making call these 2 paths head and heart reasoning, and both types use both, but they lead with opposite ones. So here's a quick tell. When you make a hard decision and it turns out wrong, what haunts you at 2 a.m.? An INTJ replays the logic, where was the flaw in my reasoning? An INFJ replays the faces, who did I let down? same sleepless night. Two completely different regrets. This next one is where almost everyone mistypes themselves, so pay close attention. Most people assume the difference is simple. INTJs are cold, INFJs are warm. That's wrong. And it's the exact trap that flips people onto the wrong type. Here's the truth. INTJs feel deeply, they just don't broadcast it. And INFJs are sharply logical. They just lead with people first. The real difference isn't how much you feel, it's how you process what others feel. An INFJ absorbs other people's emotions almost automatically. They walk into a tense room and feel it in their own body before anyone says a word. An INTJ observes emotion from a small distance. They notice you're upset, they understand why, but they don't catch it like a current. So ask yourself this. In a room full of tension, do you drown in it or do you analyze it? The INFJ drowns first and thinks later. The INTJ thinks first and feels in private. If you're the kind of person who's still here, actually trying to understand your own mind, instead of just collecting a label that already tells me something about you, it would mean a lot if you hit subscribe. We put out videos like this every week, real psychology, explained in a way that actually makes sense. Now let's get to the part that separates them for good. Here's the part nobody talks about because each type pays a very different hidden price. The INTJ's cost is connection. Living in logic, they can go years without letting anyone truly in, and one day they look up and realize the walls they built for protection have become a cage. Their loneliness is self-made and quiet. The INFJ's cost is the opposite. They absorb so much of everyone else that they lose track of themselves, and eventually they hit what psychologists studying empathy overload call burnout, that hollow shutdown after giving too much for too long. So look at your exhaustion. When you're drained, is it because you let no one in or because you let everyone in? The INTJ burns out from isolation. The INFJ burns out from absorption. Your particular kind of tired is one of the loudest clues you have. And notice how each one recharges. The INTJ needs to be completely alone with a problem, a project, a book, a system to take apart. People, even good people, cost them energy. The INFJ needs alone time too, but for a different reason. Not to solve something, but to wash off everyone else's emotions and find their own again. One retreats to think, the other retreats to feel like themselves. Now, the root underneath all of it, how each type reacts when everything falls apart. Both share the same deepest weakness in Jung's model, something called inferior extroverted sensing. In plain terms, both types are disconnected from the physical present moment, but under heavy stress, they collapse in opposite directions. The INTJ, overwhelmed, tends to turn cold and controlling, doubling down on logic, cutting people off, trying to think their way out of a feeling. The INFJ, overwhelmed, tends to flip the other way, becoming harsh, critical, and uncharacteristically blunt, lashing out at the very people they normally protect. That stress reaction is one of the most honest tells there is, because nobody performs their breakdown. When you're pushed to your limit, do you go silent and rigid, retreating into cold control? Or do you snap, sharpen, and say the blunt thing you'll regret? The direction you break reveals the wiring underneath. Which brings us to the most important one, how to actually know for good. Forget the quiz. Ask one question about your natural first move in the world. When you walk into a new situation, does your mind reach first for the system? How does this work? What's the plan? What's inefficient here? Or does it reach first for the people? What's the mood? Who's uncomfortable? How does everyone feel? That first instinct, before you have time to think, is your co-pilot showing itself. Logic first is the INTJ, people first is the INFJ. If you're still not sure, watch yourself give advice. When someone comes to you with a problem, does your mind race to fix it? Here's the plan. Here are the 3 steps. Here's what's wrong. That's the INTJ, leading with the system. Or does your mind slow down to hold them? How are you really doing? That sounds so hard. I'm here. That's the INFJ, leading with the person. You do this a dozen times a week without noticing. It's one of the truest signatures you have. And here's the freeing truth. Neither one is better. The INTJ is the architect who builds the future in blueprints. The INFJ is the counselor who builds it in people. Both are rare. Both are powerful. You are never going to find yourself in a label. You find yourself in the pattern of how you actually move through the world. So the next time a test flip-flops on you, you won't panic. You'll know exactly where to look. Not at how smart you are, both types are brilliant. Not at how deeply you feel, both types feel everything. You'll look at the co-pilot, the quiet second voice that either reaches for the system or reaches for the people. That's the line. That's the whole answer, hiding under 70% of sameness. You are not too complicated to understand. You've just been looking at the part you share instead of the part that makes you you. And now you know the difference. If you want to go deeper, I put together a video on what it really means to have introverted intuition, the strange, quiet superpower these two types share. It's right here when you're ready.